consistency. Does it have a payoff? And if so, when? The wait and see component of life. We often have this question of, should I continue this action going forward? And what that can avail to us at times is frustration. But you have this other component over here that must outweigh the frustration. It's the patience. The patience piece is the key to having your action come to fruition. But again, the question is, does it have a payoff? And if so, when? What does it look like? When is the payoff coming? We've been doing this action for so long. Whatever the action is put yourself in that consistent component of your life, and you're thinking about when is it going to have a payoff. We all have to ask ourselves this question. We all have to deal with this. It's not necessarily an easy component to deal with, but it's necessary for life. It does teach us the patience that we have to have or should have in order to get that thing that we're aiming for, whatever it is. You fill in the blank there. So what's the timing of it coming to its full maturity? And that's the thing about time and timing, that all these components, this variable of life in terms of consistency, there's this equation, and it doesn't always equal the same time. Because if we did, we'd have everything we wanted, right? I'd have everything I wanted, you'd have everything you wanted, people you know, family members, friends, significant others, they would have everything that they wanted. But that's not the way life works. But there are some people out there, and I have the privilege of talking to them about this, and they give the notion when they're conversing that this thing should be happening right now. Within my organization, I have the privilege of talking with CXOs, CEOs, CSOs, CTOs, CIOs, everything, every CXO you can think of. And there are times when we isolate and we have these strategy sessions. And this strategy session paints this big picture, and then this big picture culminates into certain actions that need to be performed by certain people. And the one thing that we often talk about is that with the strategy, there's this consistency component, that piece, and then there's a persistency component of pushing through the challenges or whatever. But there's this timing component that a lot of them are not sure of. We have a deadline or a date when we want XYZ to happen, but sometimes, especially when you have someone else's will, their decision-making factor involved, it doesn't always come to fruition. Theirs oftentimes is maybe is internal with the organization, and a lot of the times, I say always, there's internal, external. There's an external component when dealing with customers, vendors, suppliers, those sorts of things. So we have this wait and see component. When is it going to happen? We've been doing this for X amount of time. When is this going to happen? When you grow in a business, you have the same question. When you get this business to $5 million, $10 million, well, when is it going to happen? What is it going to take? And this is where strategy comes into play. One opportunity that will avail itself to match consistency, or to meet consistency where it is this whole strategic thinking component. There's another series later on, I wrote a book about that, or we're finishing up a book about that at the time of making this video. And it's difficult. It's difficult to assess when something is going to happen when you have the foresight of seeing the steps, the things that need to partake, but is this going to happen at this point in time that we want it to? That's always the question. Sometimes it's a hit, sometimes it's a miss. Do you know what it's going to be and when it's going to happen? Not necessarily. We have the option we all have choice in the matter too. We have the option to continue on, or we have the option to stop and give up. If you want to throw the meaning of insanity, doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. Is being consistent insanity? When does it become, when does the line get crossed from consistency to insanity? And that is a very, very nuanced question that we all think about, or have to think about, must think about, must solve for our personal equation to balance out our life. Some factors are predictable. You have a component that you may foresee, and you're like, okay, if this happens, then this, right? That condition. We learned this in grade school, if, then. And there's a lot of if-thens in life. And consistency, that's also part of the equation of consistency, is if, then. So circle all this back around to what we're talking about. It's like when, so what do we do in order to make things happen deliberately, intentionally? Well, there's a component that we don't have control over. Sorry folks, you don't have control over everything. There are times when we want to have control over many, many variables of our life, but we must be honest with ourselves that we do not have control over everything. So we have to manage our patience, manage our frustration, manage the emotions, manage the self-control, self-regulation, and be self-aware about whether or not this thing, and see the opportunities that are progressing towards the end goal of the strategy. So if you see it progressing towards the end goal of the strategy, that's when consistency will have its merit. That's when the snowball rolling down the hill pick up speed and pick up momentum and becomes what you want it to be. But not until you start seeing these components move forward. And sometimes it's like we take 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. At least it looks like that. And this is where we have to be persistent and consistent to maneuver through life. So I know it's a challenge. I just want to encourage you today, with looking at this video, is to be consistent and be persistent through the challenges. Yes, it's frustrating. The timing oftentimes is unknown when it's going to come to fruition. But look for the signs that it's moving towards the goal and keep pushing forward. Because then you have an opportunity to predict that yes, this is going to happen. And as you get closer to the goal, you can say, yes, this is going to happen at this point in time. Not always easy, but be patient, you'll get there. All right, folks, bye.